On March 4th, 2025, a man walked into my shop holding a folder. It was not a repair order or a quote from another shop. Inside was a Carfax report, a service history printout, and a stack of receipts going back 4 years. He had done everything right. He had researched the seller, verified the mileage, and checked the accident history. He had even paid for a pre-purchase inspection at a local dealership before handing over $18,000 for a used Toyota RAV4 with 62,000 miles on it. 3 weeks later, he was standing in my bay with a car that burned 1 quart of oil every 800 miles and a transmission that shuddered every time it shifted from second into third. Today, I am revealing the one thing almost nobody checks before buying a used Toyota: a hidden failure mode that does not show up on Carfax, does not trigger a warning light, and will not be caught by a standard pre-purchase inspection unless the technician knows exactly what to look for. I have watched this destroy tens of thousands of dollars of value, and I have seen it ruin relationships, budgets, and trust in cars people thought were bulletproof. Because here is the truth. Toyota has one of the greatest reputations in the automotive world, and it is largely deserved. The engines are robust, the transmissions are generally well-engineered, the reliability data across multiple decades is genuinely impressive. But reputation creates blind spots. When people hear Toyota, they lower their guard. They assume longevity. They assume the previous owner took care of it, because of course they did. It is a Toyota. And that assumption, more than any mechanical flaw, is what puts buyers at risk. I have been working on Toyotas for over 2 decades. I have seen them go 300,000 miles without a significant repair, and I have seen them arrive at 70,000 miles already carrying damage so deep it could never be fully corrected. The difference between those two outcomes almost always comes down to one thing: something that takes less than 5 minutes to check, costs nothing to verify, and that almost no buyer ever thinks to look for. Before I tell you what it is, you need to understand why it hides so well. Modern Toyota engines are sophisticated machines. They are designed with tight tolerances, complex oil passages, and variable valve timing systems that depend on oil quality and oil pressure to function correctly. The engine does not announce when something goes wrong internally. It compensates. It adapts. The computer smooths out rough behavior. The variable valve timing system masks the early symptoms of wear, and by the time something finally breaks through into obvious territory, the internal damage has often been building for years. This is not a design flaw. It is a feature that works against uninformed buyers. The man with the folder bought a car whose engine had been running on degraded oil for an extended period. The seller had not lied about mileage. The service records were real. But between the documented oil changes, the car had been driven hard, parked for months, and restarted without the oil ever being refreshed. The Carfax showed no accidents because there were none. The pre-purchase inspection showed no codes because there were none. The technician checked the fluid levels, listened to the idle, looked underneath, and called it clean. Nobody pulled the oil cap. Nobody checked what the oil actually looked like. Nobody ran a compression test. Nobody asked about the variable valve timing system. Here is what you need to understand about Toyota's variable valve timing with intelligence and dual variable valve timing with intelligence systems. These systems use pressurized engine oil to advance and retard camshaft timing in real time. They are responsible for the smooth power delivery, fuel economy, and low emissions that Toyota engines are famous for. And they are extraordinarily sensitive to oil condition. When the oil is clean and at the correct viscosity, these systems operate silently, perfectly, invisibly. When the oil has been neglected, when it has broken down, thickened with sludge, or become contaminated, the VVT actuators, small precision machine devices with extremely fine oil passages, begin to starve. The passages clog. The actuator cannot move freely. The engine control unit detects an out-of-range camshaft position and either compensates quietly or, if the deviation becomes large enough, finally throws a code. But here is the critical window that ruins buyers. The compensation phase can last tens of thousands of miles. During that entire time, the car idles normally, accelerates normally, and shows no warning lights. It passes visual inspections. It passes basic diagnostics. The only evidence of the damage already done lives inside the oil passages, inside the actuator screens, and in the early wear patterns on the camshaft and timing chain components that no external inspection can reveal without disassembly. These signs are effectively hidden unless you look specifically for them. By the time a code finally appears, usually P0011, P0012, P0021, or P0022, camshaft position timing that is over-advanced or over-retarded, the system has already been running in a degraded state long enough to cause secondary damage. Timing chains stretch from inadequate lubrication, tensioners wear prematurely. The variable valve timing gear itself can develop internal scoring. What started as an oil maintenance failure becomes a multi-thousand-dollar repair that cascades through multiple components. And the buyer who just handed over their savings has no recourse because none of it was visible before the sale. The specific Toyota engines where this matters most are not obscure or rare. They are the engines sitting in millions of used vehicles right now. First, the two GRFE 3.5-liter V6, found in the Camry, Avalon, RAV4, Sienna, and Highlander. Second, the two ARFE 2.5-liter four-cylinder in the Camry and RAV4. Third, the one ARFE in the Venza and Highlander. Fourth, the three URFE in the Tundra and Sequoia. And critically, the two ZRFE and the two ZRFAE engines found in the Corolla and Matrix. Those engines have a documented history of excessive oil consumption when piston rings become compromised. That failure mode accelerates variable valve timing damage because low oil level and degraded oil quality become simultaneous problems. These are not unpopular vehicles. They are arguably the most popular used vehicles on the market. Their reputation for reliability actually increases buyer vulnerability because people trust the name and skip the due diligence. Here is exactly what to check before you buy. This is the procedure I walk through every single time a used Toyota comes into my shop or when someone asks me to evaluate a potential purchase. Start with the oil. Pull the dipstick and look at it under good light. Clean oil is amber to light brown and translucent. You can almost see through it. Degraded oil is dark brown. Neglected oil is black and opaque. Color alone is not the whole story. Rub the oil between your fingers. Clean oil feels slippery and smooth. Oil that has broken down feels gritty, or it feels unnaturally thin, almost watery. Either of those textures means extended drain intervals, overheating events, or contamination. Now pull the oil filler cap. Look at the underside. A small amount of light condensation residue on a low-mileage car is normal. What you are looking for is a thick, creamy, mayonnaise-like buildup. That is oil and coolant mixing, which indicates either a head gasket issue or, on some four-cylinder Toyota engines, a design-related oil separator problem that allows crankcase vapors to deposit sludge. Look inside the filler hole with a flashlight. You should see clean metal surfaces and possibly a small amount of oil film. What you do not want to see is thick black sludge coating the surfaces you can reach with your eye. Next, check the coolant reservoir. Toyota coolant should be pink or red. the Toyota Super Long Life Coolant. If it is brown, rust-colored, or has a milky appearance, you are looking at contamination or neglect. Cross-contamination between oil and coolant is a red flag that compounds the VVT risk significantly. Now start the engine cold, if at all possible. A cold start is when the truth comes out. Listen for a rattling or clattering sound from the top of the engine during the first few seconds after startup. A brief rattle that disappears within a second or two can be normal as oil pressure builds. A rattle that lasts 3, 4, 5 seconds or longer is a VVT actuator that is not receiving adequate oil pressure, a system already compromised. On some Toyota 5.6 engines, a persistent cold start rattle is the first audible sign of a timing system that is months away from a significant failure. If you hear it, walk away or negotiate dramatically. With the engine warm, connect a scan tool or have someone connect one. You do not need a dealer-level diagnostic tool for this step. An inexpensive OBD2 scanner will show pending codes that have not yet triggered the check engine light. Look specifically for any camshaft position codes in the P0010 through P0029 range. A pending code means the system has detected an out-of-range condition, but not consistently enough to illuminate the warning light. The previous owner may not even know it exists. A pending camshaft code on a car being sold as clean is a serious warning sign, and it is at minimum an immediate negotiating point. Check the transmission fluid separately. Many used Toyota buyers skip this step because the transmission feels smooth. Toyota transmissions, particularly the 6-speed automatics and the World Toyota transmission variants used in later Camry, Avalon, and RAV4 models, are sensitive to fluid condition in ways that mimic mechanical wear. Dark red or brown transmission fluid that smells burnt indicates extended service intervals, towing that exceeded the transmission's rated capacity, or an overheating event. Any of those scenarios increase the risk of shudder, slipping, and long-term reliability issues. Fresh pink or light red fluid is what you want to see. For Toyota trucks, particularly Tacoma and Tundra, add a differential fluid check and a transfer case fluid check to your list. These components are frequently neglected on used trucks, and degraded fluid accelerates wear in ways that feel fine during a short test drive but become expensive within the first year of ownership. If the seller allows it, and you should always ask, run a compression test and a leak down test. This is the step that exposes the oil consumption issue present in certain Toyota 4-cylinder engines, particularly the 2 ZRFE. Cylinders with worn or stuck piston rings will show lower compression and higher leak down percentages. A vehicle with significantly uneven compression across cylinders is consuming oil internally. The engine may run acceptably right now, but an oil consumption problem will worsen with time and eventually require an engine rebuild or replacement. Beyond the mechanical checks, there is a behavioral pattern to look for in the vehicle history that most buyers ignore. Toyota sludge problems, and there are documented cases across multiple engine families, are almost always associated with one of 3 ownership profiles. First, extended oil change intervals beyond what the manufacturer specifies. Second, predominantly short trip driving where the engine never fully reaches operating temperature, and moisture and fuel contamination build up in the oil without being burned off. Third, periods of storage or infrequent use where oil sits and oxidizes without being circulated. Ask the seller directly about their driving pattern. Ask whether the car sat for any extended period. If they cannot answer, or their answer is vague, factor that uncertainty into your decision. The man with the folder had bought his RAV4 from a seller whose driving pattern matched all 3 of those profiles almost perfectly. Short commutes, a 4-month gap in service records that nobody asked about, Oil that looked acceptable on a quick glance but felt wrong between the fingers. None of the checks that would have revealed the truth were performed before the money changed hands. Here is the reality. Toyota's reliability is built on vehicles that received proper maintenance. When those maintenance conditions are met, the engines and transmissions genuinely are exceptional. The 2GR-FE V6 with clean oil and a respected variable valve timing system is one of the best engines made in the last 20 years. The same engine neglected for 2 or 3 oil change intervals in a row is quietly building damage that will cost the next owner thousands. The Carfax does not know what oil was used. The mileage does not tell you how the car was driven. The visual inspection cannot see inside the oil passages. The test drive in a warm engine cannot reproduce the cold start that reveals variable valve timing actuator starvation. Only these checks can do that. They take less time than the test drive itself. Before you buy any used Toyota, before you hand over $1, before you fall in love with the clean interior and the smooth engine note, pull the dipstick. Start it cold. Listen to the first 5 seconds. Connect a scanner and look for pending codes. Check the coolant. Check the transmission fluid. If the seller will not let you do that, find out why. The most expensive vehicle you will ever buy is the one you bought without knowing what was hiding inside it. Toyota makes some of the most reliable cars on the road, but reliability requires maintenance, and not every previous owner understood that. Now you do. If this changes how you approach your next used car purchase, hit like so more buyers see it before they make a mistake they cannot undo. Subscribe if you want this level of detail every week. If you have ever bought a used Toyota and discovered a problem that was invisible during the inspection, drop it in the comments. Those stories matter because someone reading them right now is 3 days away from making the same purchase. One comment might be the thing that saves them.